the Bond Online. My name is Eric, and today we're going to do a connection to the Graph API, just like we did in episode 1, only in this case we were going to use a certificate instead of a secret. Um, so first thing we're going to do is go to the Azure portal, and we go to the Graph API we created in the first episode, the Graph API connector. So go to Azure AD, app registration, select all applications. Here we have the Graph API connector we created in the first episode. And in the first episode, we used for certificate and secrets, we created a secret. Now, secret by itself is fine, only the problem is with secrets that you need to, if you want to use them in a script, yeah, the password is always visible in the script. You can do some encryption with it, but the best thing to do if you use a script is to don't use a secret, but use a certificate. And we're gonna create a certificate which we're going to upload over here. There is a script available in the PowerShell script gallery. The link is below. With this script, you can see it over here. You can create your own self-signed certificate. It's also possible to use what they say, a real certificate from a certificate authority, but in this case, for the technical purpose, it has no additional value because there is no certificate authority check if you use this script in this combination. This only requires a public key and a private key, and it won't do a certificate authorization check. So technically, there's no difference in the using of a self-signed certificate or a certificate from a certificate authority. Some companies just don't allow self-signed certificates, and for compliance reasons, you need a properly signed certificate. That may be for compliance rules, but for pure for technical reasons, there is no difference in a self-signed or one certificate from a certificate authority. So let's see if we can create a certificate which we can use to generate token access to the Graph API. It's very easy. You can download the script. It's called create self-signed script. I have a link below in the video, which will probably go to my GitHub repository. I also have a link to the original location from the script in the PowerShell gallery. The script, one caveat, the script requires run as administrator and it has some interaction. Therefore, I run it in a regular terminal with administrator rights instead of the terminal in my Visual Studio Code. So if you look here, this is the command we need to use to generate certificates. So let's try that. Copy it, and then we can modify it to our own. Basically, you need 3 parameters you need to fill in. You give it a common name. You can fill in whatever you want. What I always do is give it a name, short name of my connector. So MS Graph API. You can also call it Graph API connector. And then I use the tenant name in which I have created my Graph API. In this case, it's the Bond Online dev.onmicrosoft.com. It's just a naming convention so I can understand what the certificate is for. You can call it whatever you want. The start date, well, that's today, or make it the beginning of this month. Let's say 2022, and the month is the March. That's fine. You can do it today or do it yesterday. And then usually I give it a year. That's the end date. You can also fill in here whatever you want. But keep in mind that if you keep the period pretty short, you need to renew the certificate. So in this case, I make it 2023, March, and do it like this. So we type in this command with parameters, press enter. We need to create a password for the private key. You can fill in whatever you want. I call this private to make it easy. You will need this key, this password later if you want to import the PFX file. We'll come back to that. Just type in a password, whatever you want. You will just remember what you typed in. You will need it later. Okay. So what it now has done, the script has created 2 files. One is the set file. That's basically the public key from the certificate. and the PFX file, which is the private key. The public key we're going to upload to the Azure AD, and the PFX we're going to import on the workstation, in this case this workstation, from the location where you want to run the scripts. So we close this one. First thing we're going to do now is go to the Azure portal, back again. There we have certificates, then you can upload a certificate. So in the Azure portal, you need to upload the set file. That's the public part of the certificate. Select the file. Well, in this case, I've put it on my C drive on the temp folder. Here it is, security certificate. You can see all files, and you need the security certificate. Open. You can enter a description. It's not necessary. If you don't enter a subscription, it will just use the common name, which is the my name we entered in the script. So you press add, and there you have it. You see the subscription description over here. Yeah, that was the name we entered in the script. You have here the thumbprint. I would suggest you copy that one. I don't know if you can. You need that in a later stage. Yes. I would suggest copy this one into a notepad because you need it later to check if you have the proper script, the proper private key and for your script. So we run that in a notepad. Keep it there. Oops. It's here. Keep it, we need it later. Okay, so now we have to upload the public part. What we now need to do is upload the private part, the private key, into your own certificate store on the machine you are running the script. Please keep in mind that if the public key goes public or gets leaked or you can send it to everyone, that doesn't really matter. The private key is the most important one. So the PFX file is more important. You need to keep that one in a safe or at least in a secure location because anyone who has the PFX file is able to connect to the Graph API connector and do modification on your Azure AD. So keep that PFX file in a safe place. Next, we're going to start the certificate manager on your machine. You can type in just start and then you see manage computer certificates. I already opened it. So now we will import the PFX file. That's a private file into the certificate manager for machines. So go to certificates, right click, import, local machine, next, browse. And we saved it in the C temp. Certificates, this is the one. Only we don't need the public part, we need the PFX file. That's the problem with the private key. So open it. Next. Then we're going to enter the password we used during we entered during the creation of the script. Yeah, we can leave it in personal store, that's no issue. So press next. Import was successful. Now, if you double click on it and you go to details, you can scroll down, you see the thumbprint, and the thumbprint should match the one in here. So what we did now is we generated a script. We have the public part imported in Azure AD and the private part, the private key imported in our local machine certificate store on the machine. So we now created the basis to connect to the Graph API via a certificate instead of via a secret. Okay, so now we're going back to the Visual Studio Code and we don't need this anymore. And this is the script you can see in my GitHub repository and also in the link below. This script is basically similar to the one I've used in the first episode. We're going to do exactly the same thing, only in this case, we will use it to connect to the Graph API connector via a certificate instead of via a secret. One difference is this script requires an additional PowerShell module. And I've entered this in the script. That's called the MSAL.PS module. I can check if I've already installed it by typing get module. And is it already there? I don't think so. So what we're going to do first, we're going to install it. So install module MSAL.ps. Going to install it now. Okay, let's check if it's already loaded. If it isn't, we need to import it. So get module, and can we see it? No, try to import it. Import module MSAL.PS. Now it should be there. Yep, there it is. You can see it over here. And that module is basically used for this command in the script, get MSAL token. So the first thing we're going to do now is filling these parameters and see what happens. So the client ID is basically, let me switch to the Graph API connector. You can find it in overview. So that's the client ID. We need to copy that one from the Graph API. See if we can make the screen a bit bigger. Yes. Okay. Like this, the tenant name. The tenant ID. That's, you can also find that one in all the overview properties of the Graph API connector. Copy that one. And the certificate path. The certificate in this script is current user, but since we've imported it in the machine, this should be changed to local machine. Let me demonstrate this. And of course, this needs to be the thumbprint, by the way. Let's fill in that first, and I will show you how you can match this with the certification manager. First, try to copy the thumbprint we've copied earlier. Copy that back over here. And now if you match this with your certificate manager, you can see here, it says cert, that's local machine. That's basically referring to the certificates on a local computer. And you see here my, and my basically refers to the personal folder over here. It's a bit of a weird naming, but that's how you should read it. And then you see here the certificate thumbprint. I will show you exactly, if we're going to run this line by line, what the effect is. But if you see it, then you will, yeah, you recognize the combination. So I think we should run the first 4 lines. So you have here and see what happens. So let's run this. Or select the lines, press F8, just like we did before. Okay. Oh, you can also run line 19 and see what happens. Press F8. Now, if we look at the certificate, we should be able to see our certificate we've imported earlier. So let's see what happens. Yeah, you can see here. Now it's able to read. If you see this, you can see the thumbprint of the certificate I showed you earlier, and the subject. And the subject is, of course, the name. Enter here. So what you basically done now is in PowerShell, you read the contents of this certificate into in this variable, and this variable will be used later to connect to the to pick up your token, which you can use in to connect to the Microsoft Graph API. So now we're going to run the next 2 lines. Press F8. Okay. And now we can check if we have a token access. So let's say token access. Yep, we have a token, and now we should be able to connect. One little caveat, if you use a secret, the access token attribute is access underscore token. You can see that if you read back to episode 1. But if you want to use it with a certificate, the underscore is gone. I don't know why that is, but keep in mind it's a little caveat you need to remember. So we now have a token, and the next thing we are going to do is just like episode 1. We run these 4 lines to check if we get any data back via the Microsoft Graph API. In this case, it just will show the users which are in the tenant. So like the first episode, check what it will look like. So we should get these users back. Del Vance, Alex Wilbur, etc. So let's run and see what happens. Press F8. And then See if the user variable is filled with the users I showed you earlier. Yep, there you have them. So what we now basically did is made a connection via the certificate. I can test if you remove the certificate, you won't get token access. We can try that. So just remove it, delete, and now see if we can connect to the Graph API. This should generate an error because you don't have a certificate imported in your certificate store. See what happens. There's a fate error. See, it can't find a certificate, so it isn't able to connect to the Graph API. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I hope this was helpful to you, and see you on the next one. Goodbye.